Hello YouTube people, welcome back. As you can probably tell from the shape under that sheet, progress has been made. That is the shape of a Jaguar V12 with its heads on. Before I get into how I got to this stage though, it is vitally important that I make everyone who watches this video, at whatever point they join this video, understand this is not an instructional video. It's so important, in fact, I'm going to put it up here throughout the whole of the video. What this is a collection of many clips over the last 2 or 3 months while I've been figuring out, learning, making mistakes, doing things wrong, having to go back and do it again, and finally getting to a stage where my Jaguar V12 is timed up with its heads on. Now I know this video is going to generate a lot of comments, probably mostly negative. I did question uploading this video. There are a lot of experts out there on the Jaguar V12. You only have to go on the forums, Facebook groups, and YouTube. There's many people know how to set these engines up. So me trying to do any sort of instructional video would be just farcical. And that's why this isn't an instructional video. However, I know how YouTube works. A lot of people are going to drop into this video midway through, see me fumbling about with something, probably at a section where I'm doing it wrong. I hopefully fix it later. And then leave a comment going, you need to do this, you need to use this tool, why haven't you set that up? Why didn't you read the manual? Why are you an idiot? I get that. Just to demonstrate why the manual on its own can be a little bit lacking, I've actually got a page set up here. If I can just zoom in. Now, fitting and timing the camshafts is quite a complex job. And all we get here is turn each camshaft until valve timing gauge, we get a tool number here, can be fitted to slot in the front flange. That's it. That's all you get. That's a really complex part of the operation. You've got to know what those tools are. You've got to know how to fit them. You've got to know that they're absolutely perfectly positioned. Now, if you've built one of these engines before, or you've done 5 or 6 of them, you're going to know all that. So that's fine. But if you're like me and you're coming into this new, you're going to have to go away and do some more research. Now, that means asking friends, mechanics, the internet, watching other YouTube channels, and you're going to gather various bits of information, some of which will be right and some of which will be wrong. And you've got to then work out which bits are right and then implement that into your build. Now, on the flip side, some of the stuff is covered in the manual very well. It tells you exactly what to do. But because maybe on the last job that you did, the manual didn't cover it at all, your brain kind of goes, oh, I'll not bother reading the manual. I can figure this out. And then you do it wrong, then you go back and read the manual and go, oh, actually, the manual tells me exactly what to do there. That's fine, I made a mistake, and I go and rectify it. So that's kind of what's been going on over the last 2-3 months. But I think the end result is I've done everything correctly. Anything that I don't think I've done correctly, I've tried to put in the comments below, kind of say, look, I'll fix this later. There's a lot of interruptions in this video of me during the editing, where I wanted to make sure that people knew what I'd done and how I understood the process. And the end result should be a video that is worth uploading, if for no other reason than there's a lot of views of all the... What the actual fuck was that? Okay, so I'm just stood under my chainsaw here and it's just decided to dribble a load of chainsaw oil down me like some sort of horror movie. There was like a line of sticky saliva stuff dribbled down from the ceiling above. That threw me. Where was I? That was it. This video, if for no other reason, should be a great resource for just looking in the engine, seeing all the parts. You might not be interested in timing up your engine, but you're just looking for a video on YouTube showing you about the Jackshaft, for example, and the Distributor. And hopefully this video will just give you that visual insight, because I do that on YouTube a lot. If I get lost, I might just want to see in the engine and understand where a part goes. But for all the people that are going to drop in halfway, not watch this explanation, ignore this warning up here and comment, you've done it all wrong. I get it, okay? Ultimately, it's an engine. Hopefully I won't blow it up, but if I haven't built something correctly, something goes wrong, yeah, something will break and it'll have to all come back out again and be rebuilt again. If that's what happens, that's what happens. I've done the best I can. I hope you enjoy this journey of discovery into timing a Jaguar V12 6 litre. I'll see you at the end. Right, let's start by reinstalling the, what's this called? Something shaft. Jackshaft. Drives the distributor and stuff. All we need to do is put a bit of, well, I just need to give it a wipe off because there's a little bit of fluff on it. And then assembly lube here, here and here. And then slot it in. I don't know if you remember on my disassembly video, this bearing race had a little bit of scoring. So I have, oh, I'm getting a call off Andy. Well, that was Andy on the phone. He's gone to Thailand for a month. He was just telling me how he was, well, yesterday he was washing elephants, apparently. Slight change of scenery from doing MOTs. Well, I'm just going to stick a bit of, if it'll come out. It's so cold here at the minute. That's why everything's got a slightly pink glow, by the way, because I'm being warmed up by my painting lights. Come on now. Let's stick a generous amount of assembly lube on the bearing surfaces. And dribble it everywhere, all over the place. There we go. Just guide that in. Right, we now want to secure that in place with this retaining plate, which goes this way. Just focus on it. It's slightly lopsided, so I'm going to say this side's fatter and this side's thinner. So it goes that way, okay? Not that way. And it's held in with two, whoops, 1/2-inch bolts with a washer on. I've got them ready there. And I've got my spanner ready. Right, good. So that just pulls forward. That slots in there. And then what we're going to have to do is pull the whole thing forward by quite a bit. Actually, I'm going to have to get those bolts in first. I've just remembered from when I took this apart, because obviously you can't get in behind there. So I do talk about the Jackshaft and its positioning and all that kind of stuff later on. However, you're supposed to install the shaft first and then put the sprocket on later, which also helps with chain routing. So if you build the Jackshaft in the way that the instruction manual says, you don't have the problems that I'm about to have screwing the thrust plate in because there's no sprocket in your way. Gonna need both of them in, aren't I? So get them in, pull that forward enough to slot that down in the groove. There we go. And then I do remember when I took this back, I said it was going to be a bit of a faff getting them back together, but no, I've just got to start the thread. I can't work with these gloves on. I'm going to get them started and then film just nipping them up. No, I managed to get them started. Now it's just a case of drawing it in with the bolts. Let's check that's free spinning, which it is. I think what's next is all the timing guides. So I'll start off with this one here. I believe that one goes there. For some reason this one, it's the only one as well, has your grip washer, but it has another washer behind it. In fact, I just need to check actually that that's not a spacer washer and is supposed to go behind this plate. I'm sure it isn't, because I'll check my own video when I remove it anyway. And I seem to remember thinking, why have they put an extra washer on that one? I'm going to leave these all loose because I've got to put that tool on in a bit and set where these guides sit in relation to the timing chain. That can come later. This one goes over here. This one has just got long bolts with a grip washer spacer onto the back, and they're both the same size on this one. So just get it all together and then nip it up. Otherwise bolts and washers start flying everywhere. Again, I'm going to leave all this loose. Now this side gets a bit more silly I'll start off with this plate. This is where your camshaft tensioner sits. I'm just going to put this small bolt and grip washer in here. You'll notice it actually sticks out here, and that's because this sits in behind it like so. So I've now got to get this side's equivalent, which sits like this. You know you got the right one because it's actually got a bit of a curve cutout where the cam chain tensioner can expand in. You've got a spacer and another spacer. This one's longer than this one. The gap between, because this is stuck out, the gap between this and the top is smaller, so that's for that one. I believe the two bolts that I have, I say I've got two bolts. What have I done with the other one? I found it. It was just there on the floor in front of me. Anyway, they are the same size. So what we want to do is get our thing. What are these called? These are for resting the cam sprockets on. So I guess they're cam sprocket holder brackets or something. Stick a bolt through it. We need the shorter of the two spacers. Then we need to take this, feed that in there, line up all the holes, and whoop, everything's going to flap about just while I get it threaded. Okay, that'll do for now. We then want our other bolt and longer spacer, and that wants to go through the bottom of here. Pop the spacer on, and then pop it through the hole and just get that threaded on as well. I can't remember, I'll be honest, looking at this right now, when I come to put the chain on, whether I have to undo any of this, excuse me, to get the chain on. I really can't remember, but we'll cross that bridge. I could read the instruction manual, of course, but that's way too sensible. I think the next stage is to set the guides at their correct point, which, so I cocked up, because, I suppose I didn't. I was going to remove all this anyway. If you don't need to remove or loosen your guides, then don't, and then you don't need to reset them. Apparently you can just pop the chain on and then set these just so that they're just flush with the chain, apparently. Or if you want a more precise way of doing it, then you need to get this tool, which has a Jaguar number. This isn't an original one, obviously, it's a copy. But this fixes onto the front, and then these dowels correspond to where these need to sit. You press them up against them, nip everything up, and then that should be to where they're supposed to be, factory spec. So let's just get this on here. So it's just 4 bolts fixing it on, which I've used 13mm. I don't know which bolts I've used. I'll be honest, I just found ones that fitted correctly. So these ones are just on a dowel, so that's just pulled in. Not going to over tighten them, just nipping it on. Doesn't need to be tight, just needs to be on. Right, and then I believe, nice. I forgot while I was putting it on, you need to make sure that your what did I call these before? Camshaft sprocket guides are in, because it'll help line them up as well. I don't know if they're just supposed to rest or whether in the middle. I'm just going to go with resting because that's what everything else is doing. Press that up against there. Nip that up. Now I need to hold that up against those ones. Can't really see what I'm doing. Nip that there. And then we've got this one here. Again, it's loose. Needs just pressing up against that. And these nipping up. Right, and then I just need to nip that one up once I've taken this alignment tool off. That's now, because it's been pushed on or pulled in with dowels, it's just going to be a little bit stubborn to get off. So we'll just need to give it a bit of a, oops, maybe not hit the guide. There we go. Pop out the way. So in theory, all our guides now, I just need to nip that one up, don't I? Yeah, in theory now that's all set correctly to factory spec. I don't know, that's all I can go off. Let's get the bottom sprocket and the chain on, because we have to do that in one movement because of this collar here. So we'll need that, and we've got a new chain to go on. The old chain was fine, but it seemed daft to not replace the chain whilst doing all this work. There we go. That's what I wanted. That's going to slide on nicely. Okay, so mustn't forget this bit. Find the woodruff key locating thing. And then that's probably going to need a little bit of gentle persuasion. Just had my plastic hammer, didn't I? Well, that's that on. So now slide this thing, whose name I don't know. That goes like that. Then got another woodruff key there, which I bought a new one. Where did I put it? There it is. I mean, the old one, whoops. The old one was fine, but I did just, I don't know if I can focus on that. I did just damage it. That's not a word. Damage it slightly, getting it out, so I felt like I should probably use a new one. So I've never actually installed one of these before, but I'm assuming you just line it up and then it's an interference fit into a very finely toleranced slot. I use a plastic hammer. That didn't go very well. There we go, that's better. Is that it? Is that all you do with the woodruff key? Never done one before, but that seems to be in. I will get that checked, obviously. I've got this pretty much set up. Just coming up to top dead centre now, and then we'll see it go just past 0. Sorry, we'll see it go up to 0 and then drop off again, hopefully. So there, just back a bit was top dead centre. There's top dead centre, and then we've just gone past it. So there. I just realised whilst editing that I've deleted the clips all about locking the flywheel and the crank in position. So once you've set top dead centre very accurately with your dial gauge indicator or other methods, you're going to want to make sure that that doesn't move at all through all the process of faffing about with the chain and the sprockets and all that kind of stuff. I have seen another YouTube channel where it's cut a section out of a spare flex plate and locked that in place. I assume there was an official Jaguar tool back in the day, which you can't get anymore as far as I'm aware. I managed to find these on Amazon. They're called universal flywheel locking tools. I bought 2 because even though I'm sure one would lock everything in place, 2 working together, it's just going to guarantee that nothing's going to move. I then needed a couple of 9/16 UN, is it C? I think the UNC bolts. locate them into two of the gearbox fitment threads, and that now is locked in place. Also, it's very hard for me to film this and it be at the correct angle because of the way a camera lens works. It always looks like it's misaligned, but that is drawn with a square locked into place on this plate and then straight down. So that just gives me an instant visual reference that I'm bang on in line as well when I'm round the rear of the engine. Right, you know how I said there was going to be some forward and backward steps? Well, I knew that was going to be the case. I've just popped the cam sprockets on loosely onto their holders and fed the chain round. I'm about to faff about doing a lot of nonsense because I don't know what I'm doing, and I couldn't figure out how to get the chain round the Jackshaft sprocket here without moving this timing guide out of the way, which I didn't want to do because that would mean having to set the timing guides again, which I couldn't figure out how to do with the chain on. There's a lot of learning going on here. Anyway, all that aside, this whole section, you'll see me talking about the Jackshaft sprocket on the front here and this timing dot, and that it should be pointing up. That's incorrect, I found out. One of the good things about stuff taking me a long time to do is I have a lot of time to go watch YouTube videos, read the Big Green Book of Bollocks, look on the internet forums, and through that I realised that the wording of the Big Green Book of Bollocks is a bit vague. So what the book says is the Jackshaft sprocket here is one piece and it has a timing mark, and the Jackshaft itself, the shaft that's attached to this sprocket, is called the Jackshaft, and that has a timing mark. And the book tells you to make up the Jackshaft and the Jackshaft sprocket together into one piece, ensuring that the timing mark on the shaft and the timing mark on the sprocket are at 180 degrees to each other. So that's easy. You can only do it one of two ways because of where the bolt holes are. So that's simple. And then later in the book, when it's telling you how to time the engine up, it tells you how to install the Jackshaft. And it says, and this is where I got very confused, and I think so have some other people, because I've seen YouTube videos where people have positioned their Jackshaft with the timing mark pointing up. But what it says is, position the Jackshaft in such a way that the timing mark on the Jackshaft, that's that bit of this arrangement, is pointing up. So that means if the Jackshaft timing mark, which is somewhere here in the engine at the minute, is pointing up, this one by default will be pointing down, because as we know, we've been told to make it so that the timing marks are at 180 degrees to one another. Just to make a point about how annoying the Big Green Book can be, the only diagram or picture in the entire book of the Jackshaft is this one. And whilst it's helpful to make my point here about the timing marks, because you can actually clearly see on this one, the Jackshaft is in its timed position, we have to assume for this picture's purpose, otherwise why would they bother to show it? And they've clearly marked the timing marks in what I think is the correct position. But hilariously, the artist that's drawn it has drawn the bolts that hold the Jackshaft sprocket onto the shaft in the wrong position, because they're in like a vertical alignment when the Jackshaft's made up, not a horizontal one. So that just threw me a little bit more, because I was like, oh great, I found a picture that confirms everything and it's absolutely perfect. And I was like, well, it's still not quite right because the bolts are in the wrong place. But I have to just put that down to a stupid artist who didn't know what he was doing. So I feel a bit stupid for even getting confused. When you understand the wording of it, it's perfectly simple, but it does throw you, because if you're just not really, I don't know, if you don't know these engines very well, which I don't, and you just pick up the Jackshaft, which you think is one piece, and you see a timing mark, the book's quite misleading, because it tells you to quite clearly point the timing mark up. Why they couldn't just have the timing marks so they both pointed up, I don't know. Obviously nice and tight here. I've got me Jackshaft pointing upwards. Whoops, I've just moved that, but I'll sort that later. But I realised I can't get the chain around the bottom of the jack shaft and up here with all this fixed on. So I guess you have to do that first, which of course means I'm going to loosen this, which means this is going to move, which means I'm going to have to reset it with the tool that's there again, I think. It's about an hour later and I've reached this stage. I did have a bit of a faff. I don't know how you're supposed to get the chain on around this jack shaft without moving the chain guides, which then undoes the work that tool does. There's probably some specific Jaguar method that you're supposed to use that I don't know. Yeah, the answer is read the instruction book, dumbass. It's quite clear. What you're supposed to do is line everything up, but not have that jackshaft sprocket installed yet. And then you can feed it round like you do the crankshaft sprocket. But because I'm a bloke and I didn't read the instructions properly, I couldn't do that. So what I did was I undid the retaining plate or thrust plate that's holding in the jackshaft as it's made up now and slid it in and out to allow me to rotate and position the jackshaft. So in these next few clips, you'll see me doing that. But officially, you're supposed to put the jackshaft in and then when you've got everything lined up, pop your sprocket on, which is probably a lot simpler, let's be honest. I have also fitted the chain tensioner. It's in its non-tension mode at the moment. Retracted, is that the word? It's like this, not like that, basically. To do that, I had to take the sprocket off and just lay it in. That seems simple enough. Right, let me get a stool. I need to sit down. We're at top dead centre, so I want that dot at the bottom and the dot on the shaft up, which is quite clearly what the book says. I don't know why I got distracted by other people's messings about. Now I'm going to have to take that sprocket off to get that chain out over the guide. I can rotate that. Must pull the chain tight, of course. Don't forget that part of proceedings. Get it over the jack shaft. Is that the right one? It's going to be a bit of trial and error here, I think. I think it should be one more that way. Don't know what I'm doing on a complicated engine. Well, that's just like on an angle that way now. Fuck's sake, Jaguar. Which one do you want? I mean, the timing mark's up, but I might have to do a bit more research into this. I mean, because I'm imagining if that was locked in place, I suppose these sprockets aren't exactly where they'll be. So that matters, doesn't it? Oh, my head's hurting. I've sat for a while. This probably isn't how you're supposed to do it, but again, I'm not doing it how you're supposed to do it. I'm doing it how it makes sense to me because that's all I can do. I think what I'm going to do is put the heads on and time up the cams roughly and then see how this all sits without the timing cover on. I'll then have to take the heads back off once I know that I've got this correct, because I do think once that these sprockets are actually on the camshafts in the correct position, that's going to line up bang on down, and that one there will be bang on up, and we'll be at top dead centre down there, and we know we're at top dead centre there. And the cams obviously need timing up. I've got the tools for them. Just pop this cam cover and gasket off. Actually don't need to take the gasket off, but I can just imagine it's going to flap about getting in my way. We've now got to set the cams. Got these tools. But this cam needs rotating. There's a notch that's down there. I actually did punch some marks in here, but I can't be absolutely sure that the timing was 100% correct before, so we'll try and line it up with the tool as well. I'm going to need some bolts in there. May as well use the actual bolts that are for it. Hopefully 2 will be enough. So you can just, if I just zoom in, whoops, come on now, there we go. You can just see the notch that I was on about coming round, and it's actually landed exactly where I wanted it. You then take this tool and it sits on the flats here, I believe, and I want that notch to line up with it. I've just got the B-bank cam out here, so I'm just gonna, I can't do this with one hand, I don't think. Not in a controlled manner. Oh, there we go. No, it's just gonna go way past. But yeah, I'm just gonna line that up with my original marks, and then just verify it with the tool again. Interruption time. I went away and did a bit more research into the timing of the cams, and because again the book's pretty vague on it, so when I filmed that clip that you've just watched, I didn't know what I was talking about. I still don't know what I'm talking about, but the information that I've gathered is these timing marks need to slot in perfectly into that slot, and you need to check where it sits on the flats of the cam housing. There's no clearance at all. So apparently some people like to get a flashlight and shine it through, and if you can see any light coming through that crack there or there, then you're not quite lined up. What I did was got my smallest feeler gauge and checked that there was no clearance at all, both on the A and B side, on both sides. And then that means, because obviously you know you're at top dead center, if these, both A and B, are timed up perfectly, then everything should be great. There we go. I'm going to be an expert at lifting Jaguar XJS heads on and off by the end of this, aren't I? Why won't it go on there though? No, it should. Yeah. Oh. That answers my question though, and the answer is I'm not in the right place, because that is not pointing straight down. It should be one more across. Fucking hell. This is such a minefield for someone who doesn't know. Yeah, that's definitely that way. So that it should be there. That should be a straight line. Right, I need to talk now about the Jackshaft positioning. It seems within reason it doesn't really make any difference. When you come to assemble your distributor, there's a mark that you need to line the bottom rotor up with, and the distributor body itself can rotate. So in theory, you could put it pretty much wherever you want. I mean, there's some breathers that come out the back of the distributor body itself, and I mean, I guess you could route them at the front if you wanted to go crazy. I don't know, basically, but it doesn't seem to be as important as I thought it was. I mean, you can actually see on this picture, this is, I don't know, build number 73. I had stuff on and off as I was trying to understand and figure out what I was doing. The dots actually shifted over slightly. I think once I put the heads on for the final build, it was maybe shifted over slightly that way. It kind of sits where it wants to sit, and you can adjust the distributor body itself to suit, which I do at the end. So I'm hoping that's all correct. I don't really know. Again, not an instructional video, just my explorations. So we're tight there. That's all correct. That's how it's going to sit. So, wonder if I can do it. Should be able to do it with the heads on. Let's try that. It's been many hours. I've got a headache. I'm hungry. But I have figured out, I think. I take back what I said about not needing the Jackshaft locking tool. I can kind of see now that would be handy. I haven't actually mentioned anything about a Jackshaft locking tool yet. That was probably in some clips that I deleted. There was a tool that Jaguar used whilst they were building engines. It would connect into these two empty holes here, which are free because the timing cover isn't on yet, and it would locate into one of the teeth of the Jackshaft and hold it in place whilst doing stuff. I believe maybe it was mainly for use when you didn't want to mess up your distributor timing whilst doing work on the top end, on the heads. To be honest, I really can't see how it would help in a full rebuild, because you have to pull the chain up tight here. It's going to go over that sprocket tight down here, and it's going to want to sit on your Jackshaft at some point because there's only so many places a chain can sit on teeth. I spent a lot of time trying to find out whether the Jackshaft has to be locked in place while setting up the timing chain. The honest answer is I couldn't find a definitive answer. There's various information out there on the internet, and asking mechanics who haven't worked on this specific engine, you get all sorts of opinions. But I had to go with, in the end, that pulled tight here, the Jackshaft is going to sit roughly where it wants to sit. The other issue is you can't get that tool anymore. You'd have to manufacture it yourself, in which case you'd have to get the exact specifications and have the tools to make it. I don't have that kind of expertise, so I've done this whole build without it. I could just see at this point how it would be handy to just lock it in place so that I knew my timing wasn't going to get changed at all. Because trying to get the chain manipulated everywhere you want and that not just turning slightly, I don't know. I kind of got it set, and then I figured out, I think, as I said earlier, that when the sprockets are actually taken off these little holders and put on there, that was actually just going to adjust how it looked slightly, and it seems to be true. So I've got the dot pointing down. The dot in there is pointing up. The good news is as well, my distributor is looking pretty much bang on, so I'm happy with that. This side, the bolts holes lined back up with the cam. The only thing is these bolt holes are just like 0.02 of a millimetre off. Time to talk about the cam sprocket positioning. Obviously you've set the cam sprockets perfectly with your timing. However, the bolt holes might not quite line up. As I've just said, my B-bank didn't quite want to line up, and I didn't know actually at that point what we're supposed to do about that. However, a bit of research showed that it's quite easy. You just remove this spring clip, as I discuss in the next couple of clips, and then you can adjust the holes to align. So you just hook something in there, pop it out, and then, so this would be pressed onto the end of the cam, but now you can see this bit lifts out like the top of a teapot actually. And it's got, if I just zoom in, do the zooming in thing. There you go. It's got hundreds of thousands of fine teeth that correspond with hundreds of thousands of fine teeth in there, giving you not infinite adjustment, but very fine adjustment to line the holes up. So if you popped your cam sprocket on and now that wasn't lined up, you can just do that and then screw your stuff up, but not before you pop this back in. I think I found a way of doing it. It was easy. Get one end in first, and then yeah, it just sits in a slot. Morning, people. Welcome back to another day of me faffing about not knowing what I'm doing. I've edited up to this point, so I hope everything before this point makes sense. By the way, I do know I've been throwing my head around quite a lot with this head camera attachment thing that I've got going on. So I will try and keep my head a bit stiller from this point forward. Even I felt a bit sick while I was doing the editing, but those clips are recorded now and I can't do them again. So I apologise for that. I will try and bear that in mind. Today, well, first job today is I'm going to get the timing cover ready, because don't spin your head lots, gently now. I need the bench free when I lift the heads off. That's basically the only reason. So I've got a new seal here. I don't think it matters which way that way it goes. Obviously it matters which way it goes, like that. So that should just be a case of popping it in and gently coaxing it into the hole. We'll have a plastic hammer, and got a big socket somewhere. I have no idea what I've done with that socket. I'm just going to go and tap it in gently. It looks like it's seated evenly all the way around there. Okay, so that's ready to be fitted later. I can't remember now which order these go in. That's why I was keeping them in there, because they're all different lengths and it all gets very confusing. I've given everything as thin a coat as I can anyway. I'm not very good at applying Hylamar blue, let's be honest. I am aware there's an excess of Hylamar blue. It's squidging out of all sorts of places. There's blobs where I've missed what I was supposed to be putting it on. I do my best to tidy that up later on the inside and the outside of the engine. In future, I would be a lot more careful. You're supposed to use the bare minimum. I have found out after doing this that if you were to put a silly amount on and it was all to squidge out and then fall off inside the engine, obviously that's going to end up in your oil. Now I'm hoping the oil filter should pick those bits up, and I'm planning to run this engine for a day or two and then drop the oil out anyway and then put some fresh oil in. So I don't think it'll be an issue, but it might be. It's just something I thought I'd better mention. I'm just going to use it to hold the gaskets in place. These are the uprated gaskets that come with the 6 litre. I assume if you were doing a 5.3 rebuild as well, though, you could order the gaskets for the 6 litre. These ones anyway, I assume are the same, and therefore would be of a higher quality than the paper gaskets that were fitted. You don't get much wiggle room with that Hylamar once it's gone tacky. It's like impact adhesive. That's looking all right, hopefully. I've also put a very thin coat on this side and along the bottom. So, oh yes, I've also made sure that my O-ring that seals this old oil feed, I guess, from maybe the E-type days, is in. Just making sure I'm not pushing the sump sandwich gasket up at all. You might notice, by the way, my woodruff key's missing at the moment. I think I filmed putting it in, and then I had to take that one out to do some faffing about, and then when I put it back in, I just grabbed my metal hammer. Didn't think it would matter, but it just squished it that tiny amount. They must be quite soft. I guess that's by design. Like I said, I've never done a woodruff key before. That other one was my first time. I'm learning. Woodruff keys are soft, so you need to just tap them in with a plastic hammer. I've just learnt. Right, that's sitting in place. We've now got a plethora of bolts and stuff that goes on the timing cover. We'll start with this one here. This particular bolt, actually, because I'm replacing my OEM Jaguar grip washers with some other ones that are a little bit more flexible. I've just put a washer behind this one because it just seemed to, when I took it off, it was just up against the hole, but it just looked a bit wrong. So I've put a washer behind that one. Let's tackle these three. Now, some of these are stainless steel, so I've got some barrier coating to put on because they're going into aluminium, which I learnt was a bit of a potential issue. So that one's, in fact, all three of these are stainless. So I'm going to put grip washers on those, and I think I'll put a washer behind them as well, like I have there. Just that hole just looks a bit big for just a grip washer to flex. Now that's those three in. We're now going to move on to these two, which are also stainless. So I'm just going to coat them and pop them in. They hold on the alternator mount. Right, that's that on. So we've done those three, done those two. I think the next job I'm going to do is these two studs. They've got a coarse thread on one end, which goes into the block, and a fine thread on the other side. So we just need to wind them in using the double nut method. Right, I'm going to put the water pump on now. Just stuck the gasket on gently. Where's that bolt that I had? There we go. Got the right length bolt now. Just going to get that threaded in. Where's my 13mm? Well, I start off with two, I think they're 4-inch. Go in here and here. We've then got this one with the attachment for the power steering tensioner, goes there. We've then got a slightly longer one through here. There's then a succession of whatever size these are, just going around the water pump. My old water pump, I have mentioned previously, had a, I know it's not Phillips head, I can't remember the correct terminology, but Phillips head screw somewhere, I think it was here. This aftermarket water pump's done away with that, which makes sense. I don't know why they bothered with a countersunk screw there. Right, that's all the water pump in. We've got one more here that is usually hidden underneath the, oops, wrong one, that one there. Is hidden under the idler pulley thing. On UK cars we don't have an air pump, so we have an idler pulley, and is that the fan? I don't know which thing it is. I'll put it on in a minute and you'll see. Right, let me just nip all those up. Bloody hair caught in there. Can't be having that. Get out. You don't belong on my clean engine. Right, so that's all in. Need to make sure that one's torqued up. I should probably check the book for torque, but again, I'm going into aluminium, so I'm just being sensible. This then locates on these two studs that I tightened in before, like so. We've then got two bolts that fix on through the timing cover, into the timing cover, and then those two studs, we've got a washer and a nut to put on each one. The next thing I want to do is fit the bolts through here, but they also hold on the air conditioning mount, which also mounts onto the top cover. So I'm just going to fit that now. Obviously I've done the same thing, put the gasket on with a bit of Hylamar. Got a collection of bolts here, all the same length. The only ones that are different are these two, which go through the air conditioning mount, and somewhere, there it is, for some reason, again, a bit like the old water pump, we've got a, I keep saying Phillips head because I don't know what it is. That one goes in without a washer. All the rest of them I'll do with grip washers. I know there's some bracketry and stuff utilises some of these for the coils and things like that. I'll deal with that later. These can always be undone At least the top cover will be sealed down by then. Right, I'll just nip all them up. I'm actually going to sit the distributor in as well, because I need to be mindful now of not dropping anything down the engine. I think that was just the ratchet slipping. Shit myself up there. Thought I'd snapped a bolt. When I was looking at the exploded diagrams for buying new bolts and bits and bobs, I saw there was a distance piece here somewhere, like a little spacer, 2 of them, and I watched my videos of taking it apart. I can't find where that would be. I don't know if it was, I was looking at an old diagram for the 5.3 and maybe there's something different for the air conditioning mount. Obviously, if I do find I need it later, then so be it. I've got 2 long ones go through here. So that's why I want to get this mount on, because these 2 are the last 2 that are pulling the timing cover in. I have just noticed that to get the timing chain tensioner later, I may need to remove this. The official tool goes down at an angle, and I can see why now, because it would mean this, you could do it with this in. I used a big fat screwdriver, and I don't have a line of sight in. Just worth noting, I may need to take that off again when I need to retract the timing chain tensioner. Or maybe I'll just bend a screwdriver. Maybe I'll make myself an official tool, because you need to get in on that little slot there. What's next is, or rather I've forgotten, is there's a line of bolts that run along the bottom that are part of the sump sandwich plate, and I haven't put them in yet, so I've just started putting them in now. Let's get those in. I've just noticed that the gaskets on the side of the timing cover protrude slightly, so I'm assuming they need to be nipped off. So I'm just doing that now. That's better. May have noticed me there, putting my finger there. I'm being very careful now not to drop anything down there. It's very important. In fact, I'm going to put some cloths in there right away now. By the way, as everything settles, the Hylamar blue will squidge out of everywhere. You can have a window of opportunity. Brake cleaner will melt that excess off quite easily right now, whereas if you leave it a few days, it's a bit more difficult. I mean, it doesn't matter, but I just think it looks a bit tidier if there's not a big excess of Hylamar blue sticking out. I've just taken the air conditioning mount off because I realised this top gasket had done the same, so I just need to trim that off. I'm now just going to give the surfaces a final clean. I'll give the bottom of the head surface a final clean, drop the head gaskets on and the heads. Got some brand new head gaskets. I'd already bought some second-hand ones which are hanging up there, but they come with this protective coating, and it started to degrade on that one, and it just would have made an absolute mess all over the engine while I was trying to install them, if nothing else. They say top on them, so I'm guessing it's self-explanatory. They obviously only fit on one side because the dimensions are slightly different up here, so you can't have the wrong gasket either. And then it's just I've just done this and taken this one back off. It is just a very tight fit, wobbling it down over all the threads. There we go. I must be getting better at that. It took me a lot longer to do that last time. Let's get the other side gasket on, which for some reason its underside is really shiny. The other one wasn't. Does this one say top on it somewhere? I mean, it can only go on one way, which is that way. I'd just like to see the word top written on it. No. Okay. Well. Right. Why can't they both be that shiny? I mean, I know I'm not going to see them, but just at this moment, it just looks cool because it's all shiny. It just annoys me that they're not the same. So it's another day, and I've reached a point where everything's timed up. I've just had one of my mechanic friends round, and we've checked everything. The timing's all great. Everything seems perfect, but there's something wrong with the tensioner side of things. It's like it's being crushed by the chain. It won't release. You can sort of try and lift it and line up that little rod and all kinds of things, but if anything, the rod's way down in the tensioner. It's like it's being squished. I'm starting to feel like Henry VIII, but I've taken off the head again. Doesn't seem to be anything wrong with this tensioner. As I've released all the tension, obviously because I've taken the head off and this sprocket can drop down, the tensioner's done its tension thing. And again, if I want to, I can latch it absolutely fine. Right, update on the tight chain situation. I've had a bit of help off Facebook. Some people have suggested once I torque the heads down, that might just buy me that tiny bit of tolerance. Also, I got a little bit annoyed with the tensioner, and I did pop a screwdriver in behind it and flick it a couple of times to see if I could shake anything loose. I haven't made any, it hasn't made any difference particularly, but that motion has set it like that. Obviously what I want is that thicker bore to be just at least 2 or 3 mil this side, and then I'd be happy. Maybe talking down the heads is going to give me that. I'd rather it was where my old one was, which was kind of a centimetre out, but I understand a new chain might just be that little bit tighter. So it was about this time that I realised I had about 1 million clips from different days, different stages of me trying many different things to try and figure out what was going on. The end result of which was I realised the timing guides were perfect, the timing was perfect, and it must just be that the new chain was pulling slightly more on the tensioner than I expected. That was the advice I got from the internet and from both my consultant mechanics. It's what I'm going to go with. So in the next clips, you'll see me just doing a final check of the tensioner. That's after the heads have been torqued on. I don't think torquing the heads down made any difference. I think it was just a few days and the chain had just settled in a little bit, but you'll see that the tensioner is now sticking out. I mean, it's not much, it's 1 millimetre or 2, but at least it is doing its job. And maybe, like the advice I've been given, once the engines run a bit, it'll settle in even more. So that's what I'm going with. I didn't film talking down the heads. To be honest, I just had so much stuff and stress going on, worrying that I was going to have to dismantle the entire engine and start all the timing build again. And also, it's a very technical thing, and this isn't an instructional channel. If you're talking your heads on, just follow the instructions in the manual. I'm going to finish this video with a few miscellaneous clips that I filmed along the way. No particular order, but here's the cam sprockets going on for the final time. I've had them fitted on with some just 1 or 2 bolts temporarily while I waited on some new lock plates. I was going to just talk through a few things that I've found as I've done these. First off, I think I may have already mentioned this, but I make sure it seems to be easier with 2 cloths. Putting one across, it kind of goes over here and then you can't get sockets and stuff on here. But 2 cloth method seems to work, because if you drop something down there now, unless you're very lucky and you can get it out with a magnet or one of those pincery tools, it's game over. The timing cover's going to have to come off again, which again means the heads are going to have to come off again. I've put the bottom plates on this one, but they are just literally finger tight at the minute. I found if you, I mean, like anything, if you tighten up one side of it really tight, things don't like to align on the other side, if that makes sense. So it's a bit of a back and two, through and back, up and what? I don't know what I'm trying to say, but to and fro, back and forth. That's what I'm trying to say. Because obviously every time you nip one side up, you've got to go back and turn the engine. But it's worth that, because if you try and thread these in when even one of them's tight, there's a risk that it'll strip, I guess. And then again, you're into a world of pain, because you're going to need new cams, because it's all one piece. That's bollocks. I'm talking... No, it is one piece, yeah, where the thread is. So I'm not talking bollocks for once. You would need a new cam, or someone who knows how to remachine the thread. The bolts, by the way, have a little shoulder on that needs to go through the hole in this plate as well. So that shoulder there has to go through that hole, and I want to do it with my fingers really, because if I try and do it with the socket, it's quite easy to compress it, push it through, and then it's not right. Let's get some of these tabs then in a bendable position. I should be able to get on them two and those two now. And when I did this just the other day, my punch just seemed to want to flatten that corner in, so I did just... Where is it? Did just give it a little flare out first. Just to help things along. It's very hard to keep my head still, but if I just put the punch on there, it just kind of crushes that corner. But if I just wedge it out a bit, and then we get our punch on there now, hopefully it'll do the thing, which it has. I've just found another clip in all the stuff that I filmed of me popping the distributor on. I might cover that in the next video, to be honest, but may as well pop it in here. Let's get these cam covers on. I've got the gaskets hanging up over here. They are sided, obviously, because one side's longer than the other. I think this one goes here. Right, there we go, that's that one. This one actually needs to be pulled a little bit that way to line up with the holes, which is a bit annoying, but you want the one with the oil filler for this side. Just have to wiggle it about a bit. Dropped one. There we go. Just make sure it's covered in fluff and metal. Stick it in there. There's various bracketry and things that go on here on both sides. So I'm just going to finger tight these front ones up because they're going to have to come off again at some point. Give it all a bit of a wiggle. Oh, they're all on. There is a torque spec for these. I think it's about 10. I'm just going to nip them up. I will check the official torque later. Right, that's all hidden away, protected from damage, dust and things. Do the same on the other side. I'm not going to film that. And then I think that's about it for today. And with that done, that is the end of this video finally. I believe we have one timed up Jaguar V12. This is quite scary. There's a lot of pitfalls in there. Hopefully I haven't made any massive mistakes, but if I have, I have. That's all part of the process. I will have to just rectify them at a later date. But hopefully not. Ignore the oil pump there, by the way. It's just roughly fitted. I was just, again, checking I had all the correct bolts and everything. I will fit that properly next video, along with the water rails, because they've got the lifting eyes, as the next stage of this project is to get it off this rotisserie engine stand. I've just taken my Range Rover down for its MOT, which is why the Range Rover boot filler and all the dog hair associated with it are actually sat in my engine bay at the moment. It passed with flying colours, by the way, so that's good news. Yeah, I was just chatting to the guy down there. He just had a delivery of mild steel tubing, and I just said, oh, do you do welding? He was like, yeah. I said, would you be able to build me a Jaguar V12 stand? He was like, I'd love to. I've worked on a few Jaguar V12s myself. I've built a few of them myself. Wish I'd known that before I did the fucking timing, because I would have asked him to just give me a little bit of pointers. But anyway, he said he would be more than happy to weld me a stand. So it seems daft for me to faff about trying to weld a stand that probably would be shit and fall over when I found someone who I will very much trust and has done it for V12 Jaguar engines before. So hopefully we'll get that sorted next video, get some paraphernalia on here, get it lifted off, fit the gearbox to it, and then my plan is to have it here in the garage to build up completely as a bit of an art project. That's why I'm doing it all so obsessively and making sure everything's looking exactly how I want, so that it can sit here looking beautiful while I do tackle the engine bay prior to hopefully putting it back in at some point, maybe in 5 years. See you then. Bye.